Game settings and options are extremely powerful tools that play a vital role in allowing players to customize their gaming experience, yet they are often neglected or underutilized in modern games. To better understand their importance and potential impact on a game's success, we'll examine 5 plus 1 examples of varying quality and usefulness and what that means to the player, because while video game developers might tend to think of themselves as artists, which they very much are, they are also manufacturers of consumer products, and consumers love products that come with options. But we don't want to fall into the trap of oversimplifying things or succumb to the slavery of general rules. General rules should be avoided whenever possible in favor of more actual guidelines. The best general rule a developer could hope to live by would be any option is better than no option, so long as we're not ignoring option quality. And as we'll discover shortly, that extends to the game's various menus as well. It's never a good idea to go minimalist on the settings and options, so it's important that menus are well organized and intuitive. Immortals of Aveum is a perfect example of how not to do menus, as they are unorganized and messy, and some very important options are missing. For example, everything on the gameplay menu should have been placed in the controls menu, and some actual gameplay options should have been added. Starfield gives us a decent example of what a gameplay menu should look like, but Sulaco gives us an even better one, as Altered Orbit has gone above and beyond, creating some fantastic menus that are not only very well organized, but also offer players a ridiculous amount of useful options. Additionally, Immortals of Avium's language and user interface menus could have been eliminated entirely, as everything they contain belongs in the accessibility menu. And while the performance budget calculator is a pretty neat idea, and I certainly appreciate the sentiment, I suspect it doesn't actually do anything, or is at best wildly inaccurate. It's important to note any options that are included ought to actually do something. That doesn't just apply to gimmicks like the performance budget calculator. It actually has real-world value and practical application. Still Wakes the Deep doesn't really want to give players an option, so they attempt to sneak one past us by creating the illusion of an option. This is very bad. Never do this. When it comes to yellow markers, our choices are on or less on, and we have no way of actually turning them off. We are left with idiot mode or less of an idiot mode. You can play as Beavis or Butthead. Take your pick. The purpose of settings and options are not to manipulate the player, but to afford them the freedom of customizing a very personal and enjoyable gaming experience. If we simply wanted to be passive observers, we'd watch a movie. The point of playing a video game is to participate, and we cannot participate in any meaningful way if we are denied agency. Nor is participation worthwhile without discovery and achievement, and those yellow markers deny the player all three. They are a perfect example of the ultimate sin, not because they are there, but because the player doesn't get to decide whether or not they are there. Having the option to turn them on or reduce them is wonderful. Some players might like them, and I want the game to be accessible to everyone, not just me. But it's not accessible to me, because I can't turn them off. Accessibility means accessible to everyone, not just the dumbest motherfucker on earth. When considering options for your game, it's important to recognize which options are relevant to that particular kind of game, but it's also important to have some consideration for the variety of players and playstyles that are likely to interact with your game. And since the vast majority of human beings consider themselves to be intelligent, catering solely to the lowest common denominator is just leaving money on the table. Options are marketable, serving as a profitable selling point when your games are advertised as having the option to turn off dumbass mode, even if most players secretly leave it on. Players appreciate having the option to fully customize their gaming experience. For practicable examples, we need not look any further than Hogwarts Legacy and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Both of these games could benefit from one another because while they might seem different on the surface, these two games are very much alike. Both games are somewhat limited in scope when it comes to options. However, Machine Games took a step in the right direction by allowing players to adjust the combat and puzzle difficulties separately, though it would have been nice to see an additional option to adjust the stealth. Combat, puzzles, and stealth are all very different aspects of a game and should be treated as such. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all difficulty setting, and this is especially true of a game as complex as Hogwarts Legacy. If Portkey Games had included any of these options, it would have greatly increased the value of their game. I found the combat to be very fun, as it was both challenging and engaging, and I would have liked to have had the option to set it to normal difficulty independent of all other difficulties. I would have preferred to set the stealth to easy and the puzzles to hard, disabling any hints or spoilers while setting Alohomora and the knapsack to story. I don't want to fiddle with locks or chase magical beasts all day, and I'm sure 10 other players would offer 10 different setting preferences for the same game, further illustrating the importance of options. Even something as simple as the subtitles shouldn't be overlooked. While on or off is is suitable for most games, for those of us that like to turn them off, Machine Games has included a foreign-only option, so we can understand the German, Italian, and Siamese dialogue when appropriate. They even went as far as to allow players to turn off the name of the person speaking so that it does not appear in the subtitles. This is the kind of attention to detail that makes Machine Games popular among gamers, and it goes a long way toward trustworthiness when it comes to players spending their hard-earned money on games. This video is certainly not meant to establish definitive rules or deliver the final word on options or their respective menus. It's only meant to serve as practicable guidelines while encouraging developers to view themselves as craftsmen and take pride in their work. When considering which options to include in any given title, developers would do well to not only employ a dedicated team, but to have that team look to other similar games, both in and out of the genre, for ideas and inspiration. Options are far more important than they get credit for, having the power to increase the value of a game and the developer behind it. Examining the various options and menus of these 5 games, we can see that Sulaco is the best example of both variety and organization, elevating public opinion of Altered Orbit and greatly increasing the value of their stock, as they decisively trounced the AAA competition for half the price. Indiana Jones is a close second due to the quality and relevance of options, while Hogwarts Legacy is simply heartbreaking. The lack of options greatly diminish what is otherwise a nearly perfect video game. Bethesda did a good job on the options for Starfield, and since we're not really judging the overall quality of a game, we can just leave it at that. Immortals of Aveum is a good example of what happens when everyone thinks someone else is working on the options menus and the team is forced to hammer them out in a hurry at the very last minute. I hope you enjoyed this silly analysis, and as always, if you made it this far, happy gaming and thanks for watching.